Let's start your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for having me to talk here today. It's a real honor. I'm going to be presenting ENG8's work. My name's Haslen back. I am not a doctor, but thank you very much for the introduction. Konnichiwa, Dobry din, good morning or good day to the Australians. Before I start, I'd like to say thank you to the organisers and for not charging me £80,000 to talk at this convention, because 6 weeks ago I was invited by The Economist to talk at Fusion Fest in London, and the cost per speaker slot was £80,000, $100,000 and there was 20 slots sold out. So you can imagine the amount of money going into the hot fusion space at the moment. So an overview, I founded or co-founded a business about 25 years ago called Alchemy that started off helping brilliant scientists and engineers turn a grey monomer into a beautiful golden terpolyaramid yarn. Still got some here. It's about twice as tough as its competitors and is now used to protect elite warfighters and frontline officers around the world. So that was my background. I'm a former British Army officer, and I spent about 20 years in the military defence sector. In ENG8, we're against using or developing our technology for military-industrial complex, the war machine, as we've seen how deep the political, I would say, corruption goes. Now we dedicate our lives to using science and technology for peaceful purposes and bringing the benefits of LNER and authentic spiritual practices to our society with a spirit of love and compassion. The key points I'd like to raise today or address today is for the benefit of the LNER community. I'm going to use ENG8 as an example, but it's purely an example. I'm really here to try and help other startups in the industry and anyone else wanting to try a startup get into it. So I'm going to discuss the original alchemists. I'm going to do LNER applications, and then I'm going to go through basically where we've gone in our journey and what I think our community, the LNER community, needs to do before ICCF27 to strengthen ourselves. The alchemists, our company was called Alchemy. There's a great tradition of alchemy in Japan. You have made great swords for centuries and armor using the processes of alchemy. Alchemists founded the modern scientific practices, and sadly in the West, I believe that the vital spiritual practices were left out of science. But that's my view. Alchemy is the heart of what we do, transmuting matter and releasing energy in the process. I'll go in to show how we're doing releasing energy and transmuting materials in a minute. Greater energy supply needs to be led by a greater level of consciousness, awareness, responsibility of the users. So we don't want people running around with nuclear chainsaws. We're going to be educating our audience in the process. I'd like to take a minute to remember the great scientists, alchemists from the days of Newton to Mendeleev, Tesla, Thomson, Einstein, Tesla, Myochin and Yamamoto, great people in Japan. Then through obviously Pons and Fleischmann, Parkhomov in Russia, Srinivasan in India, and Matsumoto. There's a display outside. Many of these great geniuses worked from the state of, I would call the supermental state. Professor Leonov, who led the work we're based on, who was instrumental in starting ENG8 effectively, typed a 700-page theory of superunification in a deep meditative state. He didn't even see what he was doing. Fascinating example of a connection to the supermental level. May their legacy be alive and and guide us basically in what we're doing today. Fire, a beautiful example of alchemy. This fire actually is an example of an amazing samurai sword making place. One of our team members was at. We take earth, the iron, the fire to basically heat it, the air to superheat it, the water to quench it, and the ether. Many of people in this audience believe in the ether, and whether it's consciousness, knowledge, or the quantum field. Won't play the video. Plasma in LNER applications. We release in our systems and others the form of photons, heat, or electrons, electricity. The technology is scalable. We've seen our systems go from milliwatts to, we believe, in the future gigawatts. It's mass producible. We basically, in our company, we don't rely on any novel supply chains. In fact, AliExpress is our main source of our components. It can be placed when and where needed. We need no distribution networks and expensive supply chains. So you saw Clean Planet's presentation earlier, amazing ability to develop and deliver a solution. I believe with optimum levels of investment, LNER will become the dominant force of energy on the planet within the next 20 years. And the ability to do transmutation, both in isotopes and materials for medical purposes and industrial purposes, is amazing. And the result of all of our work in this room today will be an amazing outcome for peace, because wars are generally fought over resources. LNER, we call our LNER reactors energy cells as opposed to fuel cells, because they just produce energy and we almost put no fuel in. We generate hot air up to and exceeding 1,000 degrees centigrade. We produce high pressure, high temperature steams, and basically we deliver electricity both directly and indirectly. And we're producing hydrogen, oxygen, and HHO gases at an amazingly low energy levels. We call these devices internally our water cell because it produces steam and mechanical power, and I've learned a huge amount about our water cell just from one of the presentations yesterday. So thank you very much to the professor yesterday for his presentation. We do hot air generation, what we call an air cell. We put hydrogen into one of our energy cells, and for some reason it releases electricity directly out of the energy cell in the kilowatt range. And we've got HHO energy cells where we're producing HHO or hydrogen oxygen isotopes, but it's producing HHO 10 times less than a normal electrolyzer. So how do we validate, and what does an energy cell system look like? Well, we have in the middle an energy cell, which is a container where we contain a working fluid, and we have cathodes, negative and positive, cathode and anode in there. We apply a voltage, normally in the kilovolt range, and we basically are able to extract power out of it. Because of the energy levels we're working at, we have a pump that basically pumps the working fluid through, which is our fuel and our coolant. The energy is extracted either via the working fluid or directly via an electrical circuit, and the energy conversion is either thermal to electrical or direct electrical, and we can have a battery for cold starts. The one I've mainly been involved in as a systems engineer, I am the systems engineer, this is basically a plasma cavitation in water device. We have done experiments between atmospheric pressure and 500 bar. We like operating in the range of 50 bar. That's our new machine basically being installed in Portugal. To date, we've been putting between 8 and 10 kilowatts in and getting between 50 and 70 kilowatts out. Our target output from this device there is approximately 2 liters of water or 200 kilowatts. Our Q factor is between 5 and 7 currently, pressure up to 100 atmospheres, and temperature up to 300 degrees centigrade. So the previous presentation was amazing because we also use a steam expander at around 50%, 60% efficiency. So well done for the last presenter showing that. Catalysts, we do use catalysts. They are proprietary, but as Lutz and his team, who are in the audience here, would say, what is the actual catalyst? It's a condensed plasmoid. So we can create condensed plasmoids, or as Matsumoto said previously, we create little pieces of ball lightning or fork lightning in our machines. To reach an infinite COP is what is the aim of all of us, i.e. can we have self-generating power station systems? So in this system, we need COP4 basically in this system. And that's the same more or less for all of our systems. The estimated cost is approximately $500,000 a megawatt. You can scale that down to 500 euros a kilowatt. And our estimated generating cost is around 15 euros a megawatt hour. So that's 5 to 10 times cheaper than gas or electricity. The air cell is very similar. Rather than pumping water through, we pump air through it. Currently, we have a system at around COP 5 to 7, around 10 kilowatts of output power. We can rank lots of these things together, so you can produce large quantities of industrial heat. and the cost of energy is around 15 euros a megawatt. Here, basically, we've got one with hydrogen in it. To date, we've been able to get 10 kilowatts of electricity out of the system. The one we've built in Portugal is designed for 100 kilowatts out of the system, mainly electricity. Slightly more expensive because we need to transform the electricity back into very high voltage produced electricity back to the low voltages we use in our system. So the cost of electricity is around 20 euros a megawatt hour from such a system. Still about 5 times cheaper than conventional electricity from solar, wind, oil and gas. The HHO generation cell is a plasma jet, which is effectively enabling us to produce hydrogen and hydrogen-oxygen mixes at about 5 to 10 times less than current electrolyzers. And we've got a system running at the moment at around 10 kilowatts of output power, or 300 grams of hydrogen per hour. 30 years of deep tech to get me here to where I am today. So Professor Klimov and Professor Leonov, I'd like to thank you for all the work that you've done, and other professors that would rather remain nameless at the moment. And we've gone from TRL 2 to 4 in the last 7 years. In the next 2 years, we plan on basically getting that up to TRL 7 and deploying our first few megawatts. We've taken a modular approach. We've operated 100 kilowatts. Why have we done that? Everything's pretty much off AliExpress or large commercial sellers, so we need nothing bespoke in our systems. We can then take a modular power plant and put it into containers, so we can create large containerized power supplies. LNER, as far as I can see from any of the other companies in the room, will be able to produce energy at a much lower cost than solar, wind, oil and gas 24/7. How do we create investment credibility in the investment community? Well, fantastic scientific work obviously going on, major scientists, major universities around the world, and also the commercial successes of companies in the LNER space. So Clean Planet's done brilliantly, Brilliant Energy, Orion, etc., Brilliant Light Power, great results. Strengthening the LNER community, I encourage the commercial companies in the room to get behind Lunaria, because Steve and Dave here founded that many, many years ago. We need to really get a good financial backing for Lunaria to promote us all, because a win for one is win for all. And the International Society, fantastic. Thank you for all the great work and support you've given us. I'd like to mention the LNER Forum and the Telegram group, very important in keeping up with the day-to-day progress. Health, safety and compliance in the LNER world. We're a nascent industry, but I think it's very important that we all look at the health issues. The electromagnetic signatures, as mentioned by Lynn yesterday, are incredibly important in the modeling. Then we're planning on starting in vitro and in vivo testing in the next year, so we can really nail the health and safety aspects of the technology. Safety, compliance with national and international standards, we're working on those. Electronic, radiation and disposal, and compliance. People in this room, unfortunately, there's an agreement called the Wassenaar Agreement that controls most dual-use and military technologies around the world, and we need to be very careful in how we share data, because we're in that compliance space. It's great working within the country, but when we start sharing data outside the European Union or America, ITARs and everything else can grab us by the proverbial. Next steps before ICCF27. I think we need to work as a community to proactively promote our collective achievements, scientific and commercial. And great thanks to Professor Brian Josephson and Alan and others in getting a grip on mainstream media, basically, and convincing everyone this is real science. Lunaria needs to become the voice of the industry, so let's all get behind that from a commercial perspective. Quarterly meetings of the LNER companies. I try to get the LNER companies to talk to each other. So Siddhartha, if you're in the room, let's get together more often. Clean Planet, great to see you here, and others. One company in the LNER space needs to come up with this minimum viable product. Clean Planet looks like they're leading at the moment. We're going for one major European grant, so if other companies would like to join us in that application, that would be fantastic. More resources for Lunaria, and I think a common PR team maybe with Anthropocene would be fantastic to respond to news on a 24, 48-hour basis, because news is old after that at the moment. Thank you very much for everybody having me talking today. We've raised as ENG8 3 million in the last couple of years. We're on the way to 30 million. I'd like to thank 350 ppm for being our partners in the fundraising, and other LNER companies. 350 ppm is a great raise in the early stage. University of Aveiro, where we're based, thank you very, very much for all the assistance of the Science Park and their teams. Special thanks to Alan, Jean-Paul, Brian, Lynn, Jack, and Dave and Stephen for all the support they've given us over the last year or two. ICCF26 organising committee, thank you very much, and all our investors and team. And to all the startups, I'm around, come and talk to us. We can obviously share horror stories probably with you. So thanks for everyone for having me.
Thank you, your presentations. Any questions? Wait.
First of all, thank you so much, Mr. Haslen, about this presentation. I just have one question for my own knowledge. You actually showed several models that are in technology readiness level 4, which is a great achievement. I just want to ask, now it's validated in the lab, and you said in the next 2 years, you're going to reach TRL7. I want to ask about your methodology to reach actually TRL6, which is the technology demonstrated in a relevant environment. If you can give us more details just for our own knowledge, how would you plan to reach there in TRL6?
I like to think that, the science is never over. I'd like to think we've overcome the scientific barriers to progress, and now it's an engineering matter. So we're hiring more and more engineers, it seems, every month at the moment. What we are doing is we've engaged with a couple of local food companies. It might not seem glamorous, but they cook beans, 30 megawatts constantly going. And another one's preparing food, another 8 megawatts constantly going. They use oil and gas boilers, so they're paying 50 to 80 euros a megawatt hour. We're just engaging with those companies and bolting more and more of our systems together, doing more reliability testing, more reliability trialing, and making sure our supply chain is resilient to basically get to that level.
Thank you so much, Mr. Haslen. Another point I just want to mention, we are a group from United Arab Emirates. We are actually working with Khalifa University, and now we are exploring several energy possibilities and mechanisms. So maybe later on we might discuss if we can have you there just to give a session or even to strengthen our communication bridge between us. Thank you so much.
Shukran.
Thank you. Any questions?
Do you want to go for it?
You mentioned that I'd like to know about the health, because probably you use hydrogen and metal transmutation heat, right? So in that case, there might be a fast neutrons and the gamma ray and the X-rays. That must be screened for the health. But your picture has no mechanism of screening. Do you have any comment on that?
Yes, what we found is we regularly get an independent tester to come in and check for alpha, beta, and gamma radiation. And we find if we keep the coefficient of performance as low, say below 10, we're not seeing any alpha, beta, or gamma. What we have seen is when we've really pushed the systems, 30 to 80 COP, we are seeing huge amounts of gamma being produced. So we don't do that. We keep our COPs very low.
Okay. I think that is that a compliance for the law regulation?
It's compliance, basically. We don't produce any alpha, beta, or gamma according to the current detectors that we've used. Lynn, we will be implementing what you suggested yesterday to do a far more thorough analysis of the machines. And also, there are people saying there's strange radiation around, whatever that strange radiation is. And that's why I mentioned we'll be doing in vitro and in vivo testing as well.
Yeah, that is
on the system.
That's what I want to ask. So probably regulation force you to monitor the gamma ray and fast ray every time. So don't you think it?
We have our own, we have testers on the machines being installed at the moment, every machine. So we have a full sort of electromagnetic signature profile coming out of the machine, but obviously not as detailed as Lynn was proposing
So you mean
yesterday.
that stable? Machine is stable, right?
Very stable.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next.
Hi. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was really succinct and well put. I like your holistic approach and how you were speaking, and in terms of consciousness and spirituality. You know, I think as a group of people, as an industry, it is a level of consciousness raising is required to accept new ideas, and part of that is about regulation. You know, and self-policing. You mentioned self-policing. I think that's so important in this field because dealing with high-level regulatory authorities, it sometimes feels like there's no adults in the room.
Sure, yeah.
And they kind of have their methods and protocols, but for something new, you always bump up against the ceiling. And I think us developing our own kind of self-regulatory protocols, keeping an eye on, you know, potential exotic particles, things like that is really important, you know, especially when you're talking about large-scale reactors. And it's really nice to see somebody being proactive in that area. And yeah, really appreciate your very well-rounded perspective. And I think that's something we should all be thinking about going forward as these things scale up. And yeah, just thank you so much for your measured approach, and praying for you.
Thanks very much. And if I listened to my own advice, my hair would still be like yours. No, the reactors are safe. It's okay.
And the last one person.
So, does it work? Yes. So you have, if I understood correctly, you have devices with COP10 or something like that, right?
Yes.
COP5, 10.
Yeah,
20.
because basically, if you start, as I would say, over ramping them, you start to get alpha, beta, gamma, or start to get X-ray and gamma.
How do they work? I mean, that's. Would you be willing to share what's the?
I
mean, everybody here is trying to get COP10, 25, 4, 2 even.
Right.
And you have a solution. How did you get there?
It actually took a lot of physicists that and a couple I've mentioned, basically many, many years to get there. So you'd have to thank the Professor Klimov and other people in Russia, basically, for the amazing work that they've done in getting there. And basically, what we've done is we've managed to just to have the resources to do a lot of experimentation and have some great physicists behind us, basically, and a lot of equipment. But it certainly has taken decades to get there.
So the reference is Professor Klimov.
One of the references, Professor
One
Leonov,
of the references.
Professor Leonov as well, yes, and Professor Klimov is also presenting here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.